is going to be a good one.
We were like the opposite. We had a use case and we had a community with no tech. Our blockchain is like a shopping mall, but our anchor tenant is a government, and soon to be multiple governments. The actual IDChain project itself is a department of the Indonesian government.
Okay, you mentioned a few juicy things there.
The launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys, blasting off with Michael Bennallack. He's the CEO of Republik Labs and the founder of Mandala Chain. Very fortunate to have him with us. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me, actually. Here in Bali, Indonesia, you treated us very well and showed us a good time and showed us a side of blockchain adoption that I thought was just fantasy. I thought it was just, you know, kind of someday kind of speak, but it's all happening here.
It's a pretty special place, Bali.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a setup here like nowhere else in the world, I believe.
Okay.
We have a very clear, I'm not going to say favorable because that would be going too far, I think, but we have a very clear regulatory environment.
Yeah.
There's rules, but they're very clear. But we have such a weird collection of people here where you've got the local emerging market that is Indonesia, but then you've got this really eclectic mix of digital nomads, and it's not a small number.
No way.
It's a big junction point for a lot of very interesting people.
What a fascinating and diverse place. You're Australian,
I'm Australian.
which is actually not too far away from here.
No, just a short little flight.
How did you end up in Bali?
I mean, Bali is one of the many islands of Indonesia.
Yeah.
But we're Australia's #1 tourist destination. And so
Okay.
we're only, I think, a 3-hour flight from the main city on the west coast of Australia. We're just above the west coast.
Yeah.
And I'm from the south originally, but I'm most recently from the east coast.
Okay.
And it's only about a 5.5-hour flight.
Yeah.
And so I think it's something like 5% of the Australian population comes on holidays here every year.
Incredible.
It's a big number.
And they're welcoming to Australians.
Absolutely, yeah. This is what drives local economy. I think Bali was originally found by like early Australian surfers in maybe the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what really sort of started the tourism boom.
Right, the surf culture is wild
Yep.
here.
Yep.
But eventually you decided to stay.
Yeah, I had a Web2 business originally.
What was that?
I was working as a broker for Australian universities. And so I worked all over Asia, sort of connecting Asian universities and educational institutions with Australian educational institutions.
Sure, gotcha.
Sounds super boring, because it was.
But you're filling classes with international students, basically.
Effectively, and also like cross-sharing curriculum.
Got you. Interesting.
Yeah, so the sale of curriculum back and forward both directions.
Uh-huh.
I got married, and then my wife was keen to come for an adventure, and so we decided to set up shop here in Bali.
Really?
2 years before COVID.
2 years before COVID. And, COVID was pretty rough on Bali, right?
It was, yeah.
On the economy, I think, especially, right?
Yeah, I mean, because Bali's, again, a very unique place in the Indonesian economy.
Yeah.
Indonesia's still a developing country, but it's got a lot of people, which we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But Bali is like very unique. Like wages are a lot higher here for locals. They have a very diverse range of work, which they can do here. And so when tourism stopped, it obviously crippled the place. It went back to struggling economy because they have hitched their horse, cart and wagon to the tourism dollar.
But it was during this time that you started Republik?
Yeah, so I'd already been, in the blockchain space as a private investor, I guess, with my $3 that I had spare. Since 2017 is when I first heard about Bitcoin.
Damn, wow.
And I heard about it when it was about $3,000 and thought, it's already too high.
Yeah.
It's already had its run. And I think by about 8, I started to pay attention again and then sort of started to dabble a little bit.
Nice.
Got wrecked like everybody does in their first cycle.
Yep, yeah.
But I just held on because I loved it and I thought it was, really interesting. Sort of kept paying attention, got really deep into the Ethereum ecosystem. And then once COVID happened and my business was no longer viable because we could no longer travel, no one else was traveling, no students were traveling, borders were closed. Right. I just went deep down degen rabbit holes.
We're in the same boat, man.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Thank COVID.
Yeah. It was a really strange time, isn't it?
Totally.
But yeah, from there, I realized, okay, well, I had all this spare time and I was like learning all these really cool things because I love to unpack things and research and like I just love having those dark nights, just like learning something new, just absorbing things from the internet.
Yeah.
I realized that there was no real good information in the Indonesian language, Bahasa Indonesia.
Okay. This is the national language, right?
The national language.
Because I understand they kind of created a national language to unite everybody.
Yeah, they did.
Right. Okay.
Every island has its own native language.
Yeah.
And very often, so you'll get a politician because the national language is the language of politics, and you have a politician who's got very broken Indonesian
I see.
because he's used to his native island language.
Fascinating, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no real good content at all in Indonesian. And so me with David, who's the co-founder of Republik, we started a YouTube channel, and like I think in like 9 months we had 100,000 subscribers. It just took off.
Yeah, decent potential audience size in
Yeah,
Indonesia.
yeah.
What's content about? Like, what were your early videos about?
Yeah, so we just went down CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, and
Yeah.
just started from the start and did really basic tutorials, cinematic tutorials on what each project was.
Cool.
What is Bitcoin? What is Ethereum?
Yeah.
What is Binance Coin?
Awesome.
And just I think by the time we got outside the top 10, we were already like, you know, in the double digits of thousands of subscribers.
Killer.
Yeah, so it was an instant hit. So we found we lucked into it, I guess.
Well, you saw the opportunity. It's not just
Yeah.
luck.
I mean, from there, we've grown to be a full media arm here now. So we've been going for 3.5 years. We're one of the largest blockchain communities in the country. We're chain agnostic. So I've got guys in the team, in our research team, who are from every different ecosystem, and I'm the Polkadot guy, I guess. But I mean, I got into the parachain slot auctions pretty early in DOT. Like,
Yeah.
and I was waiting for that to happen last cycle.
Yep.
And so I was, you know, hook, line, sinker
Totally.
into that ecosystem. So I'm the Polkadot guy from the team.
So when did you meet Anta? And when did you start rubbing up against this Mandala concept?
Yeah, once COVID started to chill out a little bit and we were allowed to actually come out and do events again.
Yeah.
Like I think the first live event we did from Republik.
Okay.
And by this point, we turned the community into an actual DAO. And so you can go to Republik DAO, our Discord, Republik with a K, or republicdao.io.
Yeah.
And it's got all of our research, all of our content. And then the DAO has got like 15,000 people in the Discord server.
Wow.
And so we had a big community that were like itching to get together.
Huge.
And so our first meeting, Anta had been watching our channel, it turned out.
Okay.
And so he came, and by this point, he's already told his story, but he'd already sort of gotten the contract for the Bali Blockchain Center. And so he came out to one of our meetups, and I met him, and then we just chatted, and then we clicked instantly.
Yeah.
And realized we kind of had the same vision for the industry here. He had governments asking him to build applications, and I had a community. And most of the time when you're a project founder inside the Web3 space, it's like, I make some tech, and then I've got to find a use case, and then I've got to find a community.
Yeah.
We were like the opposite. We had a use case, and we had a community with no tech.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, well, let's talk about this. And we whiteboarded it all up, and Mandala was born.
What did the early structure of Mandala look like? Because, you know, we kind of met the whole team while we were here. There's quite a lot of guys working on it now.
Yeah.
What did it look like in the early days?
We both kind of had like early starts at starting some sort of Web3 project. Anta had already started an NFT marketplace where he was helping artists to tokenize their art. And so we kind of had these bits and pieces of like projects that had already started. We had a little bit of like funding. We had a little bit of like tech that had been built. He'd started building in like the Avalanche ecosystem initially.
Okay.
And we were in the Ethereum ecosystem. And then when we were like sort of figuring out the structure of how would we do this? How would we have multiple government entities all creating their own applications and sometimes their own chain?
Yeah, for like privacy reasons.
Yeah. How would we have that all part of one project?
Yeah.
And obviously from my research days, like I knew Polkadot existed very well. And thought, well, this is probably the only real tech stack that it's going to work in, which is why we're here.
And you're the one that turned Anta onto Polkadot?
Yeah, so I was a big fan. Like it was part of like the major part of my like crypto holdings.
Yeah.
I was sitting in DOT, and so a little bit of bias there.
Sure.
And then we'd heard about like some Polkadot meetups here, so some of the ambassadors had come out here, so we'd met some of the ambassadors, and thought, well, we've got some connection points to the ecosystem. We're already big fans, and I said, Anta, like we need to look at this, and he got his dev team to go have a look and said, yeah, this is where we need to build.
Beautiful. And this was just a few years ago.
Yeah, 18 months ago, 2 years ago.
So what does the answer look like? How do we have all these government chains?
Yeah.
Like Mandala, it's just one chain that's a roll up on Polkadot, or is it like a nested? Okay, so it is.
Yes.
And then there's chains rolling up out of that?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about
Yeah,
this.
so we copied like the Polkadot architecture, really. The old architecture of the relay chain and, you know, the parachain model.
Yeah.
Like Mandala chain itself, the Mandala chain mainnet is a roll up on Polkadot.
Yeah.
We won a parachain auction. And so that will be, I guess, the grand central station of the Mandala network.
Okay.
And just to preface it, Mandala itself, the word means cosmos. That's what it means.
Yeah.
And so it is an ecosystem. It's a universe of chains. All of these government chains or these government applications or these enterprise chains, because we've got a few private banking
True.
projects.
Yeah.
They can have, if they choose to, they can be an application on top of the Mandala mainnet.
Okay.
But if they need to have their own chain for whatever reason, they can, and it will all connect to the Mandala mainnet, which will be secured by Polkadot.
And the Mandela mainnet itself, you guys are going with EVM.
Yes.
Nice and simple, like, because you have a lot to build, right?
Yes.
Not time to reinvent the
Correct.
wheel, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
We wanted to have as fewer friction points as possible, and we've had a lot of like people come and join the team, like join the Mandala team from other ecosystems, because Bali had such a rich talent base of like these entrepreneurs and blockchain aficionados that we could kind of cherry pick like the best of the best. And so the thing that I'm most bullish on is like how talented the team is from an operational and executional level.
Sure.
But not all of them were from the .eco.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all coming in fresh and thought, okay, yeah, it's like you could see someone learning for the first time, like a giraffe walking for the first time. Like they innately know what to do because they're crypto people, they're blockchain people.
Yeah.
But there's friction points in UI UX.
Sure, yeah.
You know, figuring out that like I can go from chain to chain to chain inside the eco, but I've got a different address for each one.
I know, yeah.
And so we wanted to remove those friction points as much as possible. And a lot of the use cases, like the government use cases, were more familiar in an EVM environment. So we thought, let's just streamline things a little bit.
Now, we keep hearing about government use cases, and we hear about some of these enterprise use cases, like the co-op banks you mentioned.
Yep.
What about the
What about the fun?
and stuff? Yeah. What about the retail use cases,
yeah.
the public-facing chain? Like,
Yep.
is there anything there?
Yeah, I mean, the tagline of Mandala is, government, retail, and enterprise. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
retail is a big part of this.
Yeah. So what's with the retail? We haven't heard anything about the retail.
Yes. So ideally, I've shared this analogy before, but a blockchain is kind of like a shopping mall. And inside a shopping mall, you'll have a variety of different stores, but you normally have an anchor tenant. And the anchor tenant is like what takes up the most space, but it also is what drives the traffic, and which means other stores will want to come and set up shop.
Yeah.
So our blockchain is like a shopping mall. We sell block space, which is kind of like the rent for the stores.
Mm-hmm.
But our major tenant or our anchor tenant is a government, and soon to be multiple governments. And so we've got foot traffic, and we will have a lot of foot traffic. And this is not like recycling normal blockchain users.
Yeah.
Or trying to be the new, slightly faster TPS, probably fake numbers blockchain.
Yeah.
That's why you should come to us. This is like retail Web 2 people who need to interact with their government for some particular use case. And so they're going to come on chain for the first time.
Sure.
And so with all this traffic, obviously it would make sense that you would want to come and be exposed to that traffic, which is why we have a variety of retail apps which will build on chain as well.
Okay.
So we're talking to all the local development teams, and we're trying to entice them to come and build in the .eco on Mandala.
Yeah.
They get all the support of all of the other rollups, all that other infrastructure, all that other liquidity, and cross-chain interoperability. But they can come and build in a place where there's going to be, ideally, a lot of foot traffic.
Wow.
And so, we've got mostly based all out of the Republic DAO again.
Okay.
Like, we've got a big community of like people who are building applications, and
Wow.
we're chatting with them all, like some games and some DeFi apps and some deep in plays and some sort of data storage. But like all of these local builders that are part of our ecosystem.
Yeah.
We hopefully will bring quite a few of them on chain. We've already had commits from several teams that are going to come and deploy on Mandala chain.
Okay. Can you talk about any of them?
Yeah. So
Okay.
there'll be a few games which will come, which is very different from, I guess, the government side of things. But
Well, no, sorry, go on.
games, fun and games. But there'll be a few games. We've got like a social networking app which is coming. That's like an NFT sort of booking type sort of application.
Okay.
The Republic DAO itself will all come on chain as well, because
Sure.
at the moment we like sell white label our research to other quite prominent influencers in the blockchain space who use us as a research engine, and then they slap their sticker on it and sell it.
I see.
And so we will bring all of that research on chain, and you'll be able to access it with the native token of Mandala, KPG.
Yeah.
So premium research and like sort of premium access to data that we'll put out from the Republic DAO.
Who's building the DEX, the marketplace to...
Like in a perfect world, we don't really want to create a new DEX.
Yeah.
I figure that we've got like great DEXs like Hydration and Stellar Swap that already exist inside the ecosystem.
Oh, damn, yeah.
So in a perfect world, we'd just love to build like a front end for that. And so people could use Hydration or Stellar Swap right from the Mandala portal, but they're just using the infrastructure and the liquidity that already exists.
Jeez, can you imagine what could happen to these builders if, you know, the world catches on and what's happening over here at Mandala and they start speculating and pouring their,
Yeah.
you know, it could be pretty wild, eh?
Well, again, it was another big draw card for the ecosystem because when you realize we don't need to reinvent the wheel, like, you know, liquid staking already exists. Like,
Sure,
great
yeah.
DEXs already exist. Lending
Right.
and borrowing already exists.
Yeah.
So we just want to be able to funnel people to that stuff that already exists and partner with the existing teams in the eco. And hopefully, you know, the rising tide lifts all ships.
Okay, you mentioned a few juicy things there. One was using the KPG token to access this research. This is one of the use cases for KPG. What about other use cases for KPG? Because I think you guys are raising right now. It's
Yes.
really early days. And
Yep.
But can you lay out maybe some of the potential use cases for the KPG token?
The token itself has got a really cool story.
It does, yeah.
This part of the world was controlled by an empire called the Majapahit Empire. And it ruled from like pretty much from the borders of India all the way up to like the bottom of China and right across, covering all of the Philippines, all of Southeast Asia.
Must have been good sailors.
Yes, very much so. And they were the first people to sort of like unify all of these islands and parts of Asia under one empire.
Wow.
And they had a local currency, which in Bali was called in the language here Kepeng, KPG. And so after the empire collapsed and then colonization took over and fiat currency took over, Kepeng was like no longer allowed to be used as a currency, but here it still has very like strong spiritual value inside the community, and they use it in their ceremonies, their religious ceremonies. There'll always be like a kepeng that will be put on the offering table for the local Hindu religion.
Okay.
But it's not a currency anymore. So they were minted on gold tokens originally, but now we're reinventing it and rebooting it as a currency again, except this time backed by block space.
Yes, nice.
So it'll work like a currency, I guess, inside our ecosystem. You'll use it for pay for transactions. It'll be the native staking token. It'll be the native governance token.
Sweet.
But also inside other applications as well, we'll try and tie in use cases. So the KPG token will also be the governance token of Republic DAO.
Cool.
It'll also allow you to get access to features from within the DAO, Republic DAO. But it will also be used for a lot of these government use cases where if they're needing to be secured by Mandala chain or Polkadot, then they will have to sort of bond a large amount of KPG.
Okay.
So that takes it, I guess, out of circulation. And so depending on what their use case is or their demand on our network, they'll have to maybe increase or decrease that amount of KPG that they need to be holding as like a collateral asset.
Makes sense, yeah.
Similar to, I guess, to the parachain model where like you got to take a set amount of tokens out of supply and then you get access to the network.
Got you.
And so they will have to do that themselves, and they'll have to hold a bunch of KPG.
It sounds like a lot of these applications may use it as a currency of exchange as well.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, this is the main currency.
We'll incentivize as many of the teams that build on Mandala chain to incorporate KPG, Kepeng into whatever they do. Like one of the games I know is incorporating Kepeng into the game.
Right, awesome.
So
it's kind of a lesson we can learn from Polkadot, right? Instead of like fragmenting into all these different coins and tokens, like probably better if we just kind of stick with one
absolutely
local currency.
It's why we personally as a DAO did not spin up another token. Like our home base will be Mandala chain, and it's why it'll also be the governance token of the DAO.
The Kepeng is limited supply or cap supply, right?
Yep, 1 billion.
1 billion.
Yes.
Never going to be any more?
No. I mean, not unless the community changes that, but like from now it's capped.
Are you going to implement OpenGov or any of the core Substrate governance? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
So obviously not from day one.
Yeah, of course.
But but the idea is this will be community driven, and we'll have all of our own. There'll be a treasury like there is in Polkadot.
Yeah.
A treasury of Kepeng. And that'll be up for the token holders to decide what it gets used for.
It could get kind of intense when you think about it, right? Like if you have a country, let's say in a decade, that's fully, committed to this one place, and then you have this like interface of governance that anybody in the world can hold Kepeng.
Yes.
And influence the direction of this network, like that's pretty intense.
Well, it was always the play. Like
could be pretty valuable, yeah.
I mean, you never wanted to have like governments using blockchain, but it was some dystopian controlled. Like, what's the point? They've just hijacked blockchain. We wanted Mandala chain to be a decentralized, permissionless network that was governed by token holders.
Huge.
But we wanted to also bring all of that value that a government using blockchain into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
We feel like we've got an architecture and a model that will happen. Obviously, technically, it's still very difficult, and we've got to build out these individual use cases, and the government use cases all need their own sort of white paper and proof of concept. But ultimately, like all of that value will derive back to Kepeng, the KPG token.
Now, look, you keep saying governments, like there are multiple governments. Are you talking about governments on different islands? Are you talking about other national governments as well?
No, we're in talks with other nation states.
Okay.
Word's gotten out about what we're doing, and we've had knocks on the door already.
Okay.
Nothing that we can formally announce, otherwise they might get a little annoyed at us.
Sure.
But we've got like another government who's actually on the sly, been very into the Bitcoin ecosystem for a long time, and it's been not publicly but privately mining Bitcoin.
Smart.
And they came and approached us and said, look, we've always been interested in implementing something. Can you show us what you've got? And so we've got agreements now in place with them. And we've got other governments who we've kind of got like a, you know, let's sort of test out to see what happens. But there's probably 3 other substantial opportunities on the table at the moment, which we hope to be able to
3 other nations.
Yes.
Nation states.
Yes.
On the table.
Yes.
Besides
Indonesia.
Okay, so it's 4 in total.
Yep.
Whoa.
And the idea is that we can really be the tip of the spear that shows what this technology can do. And whether or not that happens inside Mandala or other teams just use it as an example use case.
Yeah, you could copy it and have their own nation. Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So it's a very unique part of the world that a lot of people are trying to get involved in, and we think that we've got, you know, pole position right now to actually turn it into something. And let's see how many users we can bring on chain.
Now, over this week that we've been together, I've heard a lot about different organizations and government departments speaking to you guys. I don't exactly know what I'm allowed to tell people about. Maybe you can go on the record with everything. Yep. Let's go a rundown of what were the use cases we need to build out.
Yep.
Like ASAP.
Yeah, fundamentally the first thing is IDChain.
Yep.
So this is the .id solution. That would be the first primary use case.
Yeah.
And so this will be the ability for a decentralized ID that works kind of like a canister where you can put all sorts of types of credentials inside it.
Sure.
And Kilt's been great helping us to sort of model this.
Yeah.
Because they're the premier solution already inside the ecosystem.
Yeah.
But it will also work like an Ethereum name service type sort of ENS domain where you could have, you know, the Kus.id. And the Kus.id would be your credential, which you could pair with ideally, you know, your passport, your driver's license, your birth certificate, your land deed to your mansion, your crypto wallet, whatever it might be.
Substrate address. Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, even like your Bitcoin address probably down the track.
That's awesome.
That'd be the main thing that we really push initially, because a lot of the other use cases will Lego brick on top of that. You've got to have an ability to KYC someone if they're going to interact with a government application.
Right.
And so a lot of the other use cases, whether it's banking or health or local government, like data storage, all of your real world asset, your actual ownership of real world tangible things, your car or your house, whatever it might be.
Sure.
You know, they've all got to have the ability to KYC. You don't want someone to hack your wallet and then they just drain the NFT that's attached to your car or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
So there's got to be some sort of protection in there. And so these use cases will Lego brick on top of the IDChain.
Who wants to deploy an IDChain first?
The actual IDChain project itself is a department of the Indonesian government. And so they own the rights for .id because it stands for Indonesia.
Yeah, like .ca for Canada.
Correct.
.tv. .us.
.tv is actually used by a lot of different television networks.
Yeah, but who's it for?
Tuvalu.
Oh.
It's an island nation state in the Pacific.
Okay, nice.
And so some countries got a cool little tail that came at the end of their address. Yeah. And Indonesia knows that they can use theirs. And so they can monetize it. And this will be available to non-Indonesian citizens as well.
Great.
By launching this project, we do feel like that's the portal that we bring in all of these Web 2 users that are interacting in a digital way, but not on-chain. And we really want on-chain to be the new online. And by having some sort of like portal that they can actually come on-chain and do what they were already doing, but just in a more efficient way and a more secure way, we do see that this is the avenue to like blowing up the industry with new users, not just recycling, liquidity mining, or whatever it might be.
I think the announced maybe a month and a half ago, the first pilot program for ID was with, was it banks and businesses or something like that? These are like subdomains.
Yes.
People are going on these websites to do whatever they have to do with the government, and now they're being prompted to register an ID.
Yeah, so it's 100 million users right now that interact with some kind of website that ends in .id. Okay. So .go.id for government and .co.id for business and banking.
Yeah.
And so
is that 100 million for those two?
That's 100 million for all of those domains that exist.
Okay.
So you could have like the Kus.co.id, and that's because that's your bank. And so they're going to get prompted to digitize their address. And if they do, then that's now a Substrate wallet on Mandala chain.
Cool.
And they'll have the ability to interact with all of the existing use cases that they normally did, but they're also now Web3 enabled. And
so they create a name, and this goes on the Mandala chain. But then when IDChain is built, that will go over here, and then you'll be able to attach credentials to it?
Correct.
Nice.
Yep. And so we can see what the success rate is just from that pilot project. That's a prompt that's going to go out. If there's 100 million people and we get a 10% success rate, well, there's 10 million users.
Sure.
I think that most of even the Ethereum L2s right now have like a max wallet of like 2 million.
Sure.
So this could be anything. So we'll see. Obviously, it's going to take some time for adoption. It's not all going to happen day one.
Of course.
Because a lot of the time, these people don't even know that this is coming. But they're going to start getting prompted. And I think the data says sometimes people have to hear about things 7 times before they actually act.
Yeah.
But if you go to your bank 7 times and on the 7th time, you're like, oh, just make my digital identity. Boom, they're on chain.
Wow. Can you speak at all to the risks of putting people's identity on chain? Like, because what I'm thinking of a few cases. One, I lose my keys to my decentralized identity.
Yeah.
Or two, if these IDs start having, some sort of authority or voting power, I could just pay somebody to take them and their families' IDs, how do we deal with that?
This has always been the criticism of like the real world asset industry. Because I remember like back in 2018, everyone was like, real world assets is the next thing, and then it kind of wasn't the next thing. Security tokens were going to be the next thing, and it kind of wasn't the next thing. It's because it's hard for something to be purely decentralized but still have like some sort of physical backing. There needs to be some sort of intermediary. And really it's going to be because the credential that you've got, whether it's your driver's license or your ability to vote in a country, that's got to have recognition from a particular entity that's issuing that, like your land deed. It's got to come from the actual land office to say that here's a certificate. So there's got to be some sort of recovery method. Like, is if you lost your birth certificate right now and someone else has got your birth certificate, well, you've got to have the ability to go say, I lost it, give me a new one.
And you still will.
Yes,
there'll still be that issuer.
Exactly. And so it's not going to be like, okay, I have some soul-bound NFT to my land deed, and if I lose it, that person now owns my land. Otherwise, you're going to get people challenging each other to duels in the street to send me your NFT for your house. Like, we can't live in a society like that.
Totally.
There's got to be some sort of recourse where someone can go and say, hey, I've lost my NFT that was attached to my identity. I need to reissue it. And that will exist. But ultimately, they get all the benefit of being on chain. And if they do need to go back to the old Web 2 solution to reissue or whatever it might be, they can.
So we have the IDChain, and
the next probably biggest one that I'm the most excited about is we've got a network of banks that have a pilot project going on right now.
Anta was very specific in co-op banks, not national banks.
No, so that,
but it could come.
Yes. So here the banking system is a little bit interesting, where you have like these local banks that are real still community banks. And you've got to have a relationship with the local, what do you call them, bank manager. But you go and I say, Jay, I'm going to borrow some money from you. Can you lend me 50 DOT because I've got to go do whatever?
Of course, man.
I appreciate it. But then you then pay it back in a timely fashion, and then you move house. You move away from that area. With all these co-ops of banks, and a lot of the world exists like this, you move away from that local area, and there's no data sharing to say, I paid back my loan to you in a timely fashion. And so you've got to go then rebuild a new reputation from scratch.
Gotcha.
If you're outside of a Western country, you're probably familiar with what I'm talking about. So if we can connect all of these co-ops on chain, which is what we're trying to do right now, then it gives the ability for your credit score to move around with you.
Super.
And then because it's all on chain, then it's probably still a little ways away, but there's only another step now to be able to start merging that with DeFi applications. So this is the merger of like traditional finance and DeFi.
Damn.
And it's going to take some time, but that's the utopian dream right there, is where you can go from bank to exchange to DeFi application to a game to back to your bank. Like,
as long as we're moving toward it, then we're good.
Absolutely.
What's the biggest obstacle right now?
Obstacle, I guess, is that we've got a lot to do. And we've got a lot to build. And so we can only build as fast as we've got talent and the ability to pay that talent. We've got an academy as part of the Mandala ecosystem that we're trying to upskill more developers. Because we've got probably 20 different use cases that we're playing around with right now, and not all of them are patient, and so we've got to make sure that we do this in a timely manner where the opportunity is not lost.
Because there are other tech stacks that I'm sure would love to come in and take a bite out of Mandala's lunch, huh?
And the more we talk about it publicly, the more people have become aware of what we're doing here. So I would be lying to say we were not the only ones here trying to do it. But absolutely, we've got pole position.
course. And to be honest, I have rubbed shoulders with some of the other tech stacks here, and I wouldn't trust to have my government institutions on these chains. You know, we want chains that are resilient to corruption, right? We can't have like some shoddy shortcut chain going back to the same problems we had, you know, last month with that big hack or whatever.
Yep.
Or a couple months ago.
I'll dance around this one a little bit.
Of course.
Because like obviously we've been in the room with a lot of these decision makers, and they all have their own biases, and they may have already been exposed to a particular tech stack before, and they're maybe partial to it. But I think what we've done is be able to provide like a tangible reason why what we're doing is beneficial. And especially here in like Indonesia, we've got a very nationalistic country where they really do appreciate stuff that's locally made. And so the fact that Anta, my other founder, he's a local Indonesian guy, we're all based here in Indonesia. They're very partial to like local talent and local projects.
The Indonesian pride here is really strong. If I only got into Indonesia flag making, like I'd be a very wealthy man. They're everywhere.
You just missed Independence Day, and everything's white and red everywhere.
But I think wasn't Simon here for Independence Day?
I believe so. Yeah.
He captured some of that. It was incredible.
Yeah, it's very patriotic, and they love their country, and they know what they have. And they're excited about their future.
There's so much good stuff here. And obviously very passionate people. And okay, if you say that the bottleneck is talent and maybe the money to pay that talent fast enough to you know, run away with this, then that's good to know. I
think the main thing we wanted people to know as well by coming out for like this Bali blockchain week, which is what we've just had, is that this is real.
I know.
This opportunity is real, and it's on a silver platter, especially for our ecosystem. And so I would hate to be sitting back in 20 years time and I see some beautiful application on chain or some massive government application on chain and knowing that we had it in our hand and we didn't take that opportunity. So
I got to admit, I mean, look, I always believe what you guys told me, but I did come in, you know, expecting to find the...
Maybe we sugarcoated it a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've said it on our channel a bunch before. It's like, I just never seen anything like it. Like everybody's they believe so deeply that blockchain is the answer to the problems of the unique problems of Indonesia. Yeah. They're gung-ho to get going. It's nuts. So you guys are raising right now, and TGE is...
Q4? That's what we're shooting for, yeah.
Okay, that's where Kapang's going to hit the market.
Yes.
Kapang makes its return.
Yes, for the first time in a couple of 100 years.
Beautiful. Hopefully from there, I guess next year we see IDChain.
Yeah, I'd say IDChain will follow shortly after.
Cool.
Like obviously, it's like working out the chain itself and its management and its upkeep, and then TG with the token and making sure the chain and the project around the chain is all ready to go. Yeah. It'll follow very shortly after like mainnet goes live and TG happens.
If you were to look out like a year from now or 2 years from now, is there a use case that is, you know, top secret right now that like you can kind of talk about, like it would be amazing to see this? Like,
I'm a big fan of the real world asset play. So I know I kind of fighted it a second ago, but I'm really like interested in to see how things could go on chain, and we're not so gated by like big banks. Like I live my life right now on a Bitcoin standard. So everything that I everything that I have goes into Bitcoin or other assets, DOT, and then I loan against it to pay staff's wages, to pay my own expenses. And so I live off of a Bitcoin standard. And now I could only imagine if I could use collateral that existed inside my house or, you know, whatever it might be, whatever sort of tangible value that I have in my life that I have no ability to access unless I sell it. If we can really tokenize everything, get a bit Larry Fink right here, but if we could really tokenize everything and bring everything on chain, I think there's so much economic value that's locked up in illiquid assets right now, and that economic value can flow into like hiring more people and to like being more innovative, and we take care of our basic human needs of food, shelter, safety, security. What other like things can we create by putting our mind power to these new things if we're being able to unlock capital to be able to do what we need to do and then be able to move our mind? And I think entrepreneurial spirit really lifts off if we can unlock these things. And you can see how many people, and especially in this part of the world, who now can't afford a house. Like renting is now going to be forever the story. I mean, even in our countries, that's a huge problem. Yeah. But if someone only needed to get enough money to buy a fraction of a house, then they're in the real estate market. And I think it just lifts everybody.
I love it. Well, you know, last week we had Ibu Cindy Natai on the show.
Yes.
Right, big mining mogul, really. And
Yes.
What do you guys have, the largest nickel
Deposits in
the
the
world? Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought Canada did, but I'm happy to
They can
happy to
fight
find
over
out.
it.
Yeah, nice. I figured we could fight over it Onchain. We could really put in, you know.
Sounds like a new Web3 game.
Sounds good, yeah. It's crazy exciting. And I just want to thank you again for showing us a good time here and giving us access to what's happening here. It's so exciting.
No, I appreciate you coming. I mean, I'm a guest here in this country too. I've
Sure.
been here for a long time, but I'm still a guest here as well. So it's really exciting to be able to show what we've seen to other people as well. And I can relive it through other people's eyes, what I felt only a few years ago when I first came here.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Where can people follow you and follow Republik?
MandalaChain.io is where if you want to come get involved. On Twitter, MandalaChain. And then if you want to come and join Republic DAO, it's open, republicdao.io.
Yeah.
And there's a Discord. You can come and get involved. We've got something like 30 pieces of research and content a week that go out. So if you want to keep abreast of all of the blockchain world, we've got lots of stuff available.
Incredible. Michael, thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.